Hello grade 9s, welcome to the first lesson for this week in lockdown. Hope you're all staying safe, having a great day. We'll be in the collaborate session too for the first section of that lesson, so come say hey, we're gonna have a bit of a chat, just hang out for a little bit. But today's lesson, we're gonna get stuck into Act 2. So we've looked at this last week. We started giving it a bit of a look and did a bit of a summary. But today we're gonna do a deeper dive. Let's get stuck into it. So remember last week, we looked at Act 2. We looked at the scenes here. Remember, this is the balcony scene. He goes into the orchard, the kind of apple farm, and he talks to Juliet, and there's this whole lovely moment where they declare each other's love for each other. They decide to get married. Romeo goes and talks to Friar Lawrence, and they organise the marriage, and everyone's a bit worried about Romeo. They're not sure where he is. And Juliet's got the nurse that she's talking to, and they meet in secret and get married off stage. We know that the marriage does happen at that point. We looked at this last week, and we also did a close reading of these two quotes. So remember, but soft, what light through yonder window breaks, it is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. Be not her maid, since she is envious. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off. The other one, O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Or if thou wilt not be but sworn by love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. And we looked at these quotes last week, and we kind of deconstructed them. We should have had a pretty good idea and figured out what they meant. Just to go through it again though, we have this first quote, but soft what light through yonder window breaks. So we know that Romeo is kind of standing here, he's like, oh, what a soft, beautiful light over there at the window. It is the east and Juliet is the sun. So that metaphor comparing Juliet to the sun is really powerful here. And he says, arise, fair sun, come up, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, this jealous moon. So he kind of has this moment here where he's setting up the moon and the sun, as Juliet as a sun, kind of in contrast to each other. Who's already sick and pale with grief, and kind of talks about how this sun can destroy the moon, and she's more beautiful than the moon. And no one would kind of cast her off. They know how beautiful she is. So that's that first quote. We did look at that last lesson, so check your notes for that. And the second one, which is Juliet saying, oh, Romeo, Romeo, where are you, Romeo? Wherefore art thou, Romeo? Where are you? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. So she's kind of talking about that family kind of loyalty, I guess, and that family relationship that she has to uphold, where she wants to deny thy father and refuse thy name. She doesn't want to be a Capulet in this moment. And doesn't want Romeo to be a Montague. She says, or if thou wilt not be but sworn, my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. So again, it's kind of like, Romeo, change your name. Don't be a Montague. Refuse your name, refuse your parents, and love me. And if you won't, I will do that. I'll swear my love to you, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. So that really interesting contrast there with those two quotes. So now we have this exemplar. So in this section here, in the Act 2 exemplar section, we can have a look at this bit of quote, and it's kind of broken it down a little bit for you. So it is the east and Juliet is the sun, arise fair sun and kill the envious moon. And that links with this bit of information down here. The metaphor, which we know is comparing Juliet to the sun, uses celestial imagery, celestial meaning kind of the planets and of outside of Earth, these celestial objects, to emphasize the prolific nature of his feeling towards Juliet. So that kind of deep love and beauty that he shares is kind of, it's bigger than the Earth, it's bigger than the world. It's like the sun, it's this massive thing. So we have that metaphor there that's being used. And we also have this other part down here. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it, cast it off. So his appeal to Juliet's virginity here can be read as simple teenage desire, like he kind of desires Juliet in that very teenage, lusty way. Alternatively, Elizabethan audiences might have seen this as a request for marriage, this idea to cast it off and marry me, and let me be your love. So I'd like you to pause the video at this moment and just have a bit of a read of this section here. So have a read, make sure you really understand the quote, because that's a translation over here. So make sure you really understand this quote and how you might be able to use it in our paragraph writing, which is the main part of today's lesson. So pause it right here. The next part of today's lesson, and the real meaty section here, is our discussion questions. We're looking at this focus theme of love. So you might remember back to the first week, we looked at family and duty in Act 1. And then we had that, how is the theme of family and duty present the first time that Romeo and Juliet meet each other? For this week, we are looking at the idea of love. And our question here, how does Shakespeare emphasize the theme of love in the balcony scene of Romeo and Juliet? So how is he emphasizing it? What devices is he using, which we've discussed previously, to really showcase this love between Romeo and Juliet? So can you please just pause the video here and have a look at this question we have, and just highlight the words that you think are the important ones. Hopefully, you would have highlighted the words here: Shakespeare, emphasize, theme, love, balcony scene, Romeo and Juliet. So there are our key kind of words here, the key phrases we want to then use in our thesis statement, which is the next step. So we've got our kind of idea here and we want to provide a perspective. So it says, how does Shakespeare emphasize the theme of love in the balcony scene? Now we know that in that scene, there's these two teenagers who are making these kind of lovely declarations for each other and kind of pronouncing their love and in really grandiose ways, and it ends with them agreeing to be married. So we want to think about how is he emphasizing this concept of love. So for your thesis statement, I want you to try and use this example. So I'll set up a little example here. And you can copy this version, or if you do want to try and experiment with your own rewording of sentences and try to get those higher marks especially, you can kind of play with this and put it in your own perspective. We're going to go with, in the play, Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare emphasizes the theme of love in the balcony scene by, and I want you to fill in that blank there. So we have a bit of an example here. In the play, Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare emphasizes the theme of love in the balcony scene by what? What is it about that scene that really shows the importance of love and this love that Romeo and Juliet have? Now, the more specific you can be here in your thesis statement, the better. And it'll kind of provide a bouncing board for all your ideas to come from, which is a really important step. So again, pause the video here, have a look at that example, and fill in the end of that sentence for your own thesis statement. So in the play, Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare emphasizes the theme of love in the balcony scene by, and then think of what it might be. What does he do? He compares Juliet to something that you might incorporate in that sentence there. It will provide a clear focus. So pause the video and give that a go. We've hopefully got a pretty strong thesis statement now that should really provide the framework for the rest of our paragraph. Now, this thesis statement is going to serve the purpose of our topic here too. So we've done the first step. This is our first sentence of our analytical paragraph. From here, the next step for today is I want you to try and follow this process. So remember, the first thing we're doing is explaining where the quote occurs. So this is the balcony scene. So one of the quotes we're going to use, remember we've got our two quotes here. I can pop them over into the document too. That'll just be down the bottom here. We have our two quotes, which we're going to use. Pick the one you think is most useful and pick the moment. Remember, you don't have to have the entire quote. Maybe it's just this part here that might be important. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. It is a pretty important moment there. Or you might look at this other part here where we can highlight again the key moments that you might want to incorporate. So think about what quote you're going to use and then explain where the quote appears. And you can kind of copy this basic sentence structure over here. That'll really help you out for this activity. So explain where the quote occurs. It's in the balcony scene. If we look back to our summary, we know that Romeo's climbed over the orchard. He's been watching Juliet. And in this moment here, we know that he's kind of watching her from afar, and she doesn't really know he's there yet. So we have a bit of context there that you can provide, which is this green bit here. And then you need to quote the quote. So whatever section, it might be this bit here. We're going to put that in there with our Roman numerals at the end, which are down the bottom here for you, and the line numbers. So you can put that in at the end just to show the proper quoting. So pause the video here and put in that evidence. So once you've done the evidence, we have to explain the important language from the quote. So in the example, we had the oxymoron, remember, those contradicting ideas from that first act that we looked at. We also had rhyme, remember too, that idea of rhyme. And when Shakespeare rhymes, we're either loving or leaving. And we knew that last time was really a really love moment. These quotes are different though. So you need to identify what device you're going to focus on. We've discussed the metaphor, so that might be a good one to kind of tie onto and create the paragraph there using metaphor. So this use of metaphor rather than oxymoron here reveals, and then tell me what does it reveal about love and the love that Romeo feels in that moment in just a sentence. And that would be your explaining that important language features. So we have our topic, which is our answer to the question. We'd have our explanation and context, which was where we quote the evidence. And then we have our explanation, where we're identifying those important language from the quote, which will help to support our viewpoint. After that, we are going to move on to the yellow section. So pause the video here, put your explanation in, and then we'll come back. So the yellow point here. Now this is the analysis. And here you really need to think about, what does this language reveal about the author's intention? So what is Shakespeare saying about love? What does he want the audience to feel about the concept of love? What does this reveal about the context that the play was written in or shown? So think about the Elizabethan audiences. Does it show us something about how they might think of love and what love is? And that's where we can put that moment in there. Well, the last part, how does this relate to modern audiences? If you want to try and extend yourself, you can make a connection to modern audiences and how they might feel. And that's the yellow section here. So again, you can copy parts of that paragraph. Shakespeare is showing the audience how, but you were mentioning love. What is it about love? And you might be able to link it with Elizabethan audiences there too. But copy parts of those sentences and work through it. And the link, is this the only example? So more than this is the beginning of how family and duty and love lead to Juliet's tragic demise. Is this the only moment where we see the theme of love in the play? And think about it, think through the play. Is this the only time Romeo and Juliet love each other? Or do they love each other all throughout the entire play or through several key moments? And does it last all the way until the end? Once you've completed that, you should hopefully have a fully completed paragraph. Little bits of tips and tricks. You might be able to use some of this language over here. So here's some sentence starters that might be really helpful and things you can kind of incorporate into your writing that you'll be able to use when you go through. That'll really get you those vocab marks. Remember, if you're aiming for a B or an A, try to push yourself. Try to think about the interesting perspective that you can explore. There we have it. That is the lesson for today. So by the end of today's lesson, you should have a completed paragraph, an analytical paragraph, in answer to that question there. So how does Shakespeare emphasize the theme of love in the balcony scene of Romeo and Juliet? Make sure you're emailing me through that work at the end of the lesson so I can have a copy of your paragraph and give you some feedback, give you some tips. Feel free to email me if you have any questions, and we'll be on that Collaborate session this afternoon. So that session will start during our class time this afternoon, which is at 1:50. And you can pop in, ask any questions you might have. I'll kind of step you through a few bits and pieces, and we can just check in as well. I know lockdown can be a bit boring. You're at home, not doing much, so make sure you are kind of keeping busy. And you can come and just say good day. We just kind of have a bit of a chat about life and stuff in that session too. Stay safe, guys. I'll talk to you next time.